My boyfriend turned into a completely different person for a day and I want to break up. We've met around a half year ago, but started dating only last month. We worked at the same company at that time. He has a playboy sort of look, fit, well-groomed, longish hair, sparkly studs in his ears and a pretty boy face to top it all off. I thought he was your typical womanizer sort. One day he bought me a cup of coffee and we started chatting. He turned out to be the opposite of a playboy. He's a very shy, reserved, borderline chaste person. A bit awkward, but in a charming way. We bonded over our love for classic Russian literature, Soviet cinema, and tea. It took him a couple of weeks of break room meetups to finally ask me out on a friendly date. After a few months of going out, he asked me if I wanted something more serious with him, and for the first time in my life I decided to commit to a relationship. After that night he left for a 2-day trip with his college mates. We made plans to go out the evening of his return. He invited me to a cafe not far from my place, told me to close my eyes and wait for him. I felt him tap on my shoulder, and when I excitedly turned around to face him, expecting a surprise present he promised me, he was standing there empty-handed. He explained that he left the present on the train, which isn't totally out of the realm of possibility with how clumsy he can be. But it really put me off. I ordered some food for myself, but he opted only for dessert. Again, I found it pretty weird, but he told me that he wasn't hungry. He didn't offer to pay for my meal. Which, once again, is fine. I am making more money than him, so it is understandable. But very strange, since in our culture it is unacceptable for a man not to pay for his date. We were going to see a movie after dinner, but he didn't bother buying us tickets. I can understand even that, because I haven't explicitly told him to do that. So we had to settle for a tea house nearby. In the tea house he seemed wholly confused by everything, asking the stupidest questions. He even didn't know how to turn the kettle on. Weird, because our shared love for tea and culture surrounding it was one of the first things we bonded over. He, again, let me pay for our table, and by that point I was very irritated with him, but still let him walk me to my house. On our way we stumbled into a low fence. I decided walk around it, but he tried to hop it, and, as to be expected, fell over. Thankfully there was enough snow to soften the fall. He wasn't hurt, so I felt it was appropriate to laugh and jokingly asked him to stay there so I can take a photo. This may seem like a dick move on my part, but since the beginning of our, at first, friendship we've been teasing each other. He calls me a know-it-all nerd and I call him a brainless idiot. Whenever he would fuck up at work, I would make fun of him and he did the same. Both of us have pretty thick skin, so I didn't think he would be offended by me laughing at him falling over a fence of all things. But instead of laughing with me, he quickly got up, walked over to me and threw me on the ground. And not in the snow. I hit my head on the icy asphalt pretty hard. I was absolutely horrified by this weird reaction. I would have never expected this sort of behavior from him. He didn't even apologize, just tried to laugh it off. Then, when I told him to call the taxi, he didn't have enough money for a ride home. When I asked him why he decided to ask me out this late if he didn't have enough money to return home, he told me that he doesn't carry that much cash to stop himself from overspending. Sounds like bullshit, but he's still in college living on a tight budget, so who knows. I was done with him for the evening, but couldn't just leave him on the street in the winter, so gave him some cash to pay and tipped the driver and called a cab. It was the worst date I've ever been on. I felt so weirded out by his strange behavior that I didn't check his messages for the next 2 days. When I finally responded, he didn't apologize for anything except for throwing me on the ground. Even that he didn't do properly. "I'm sorry, didn't realize you were so fragile." That was his apology. Other than that, he was back to his caring and thoughtful old self. Kept checking in on me throughout the day, asking if I needed something, offering to hang out again. He apologized again, properly. But I still have a bad feeling about that day. Now I am thinking about breaking up, but I am not sure. He has never acted that way with me or anybody else. He acted so out of character. Maybe I am just scared of commitment and looking for a way out of it, over-dramatizing the situation? Or is it a sign that something is up? I don't want to throw out a good friendship because of one bad day. Comment. You're not over-dramatizing anything here. The bad vibe you're feeling is real. He doesn't have his shit together in general. And he threw you to the ground. And then blamed you for being fragile? He's a weirdo. Stay away from him. Also, narcissists will mirror you. They will get you to tell them everything about yourself, then pretend to have the same interests as to appear to be your soulmate. They also love bomb and then gaslight you. They test your boundaries to see how far you will people please or tolerate their disrespect. This is not going to better, only worse. Totally, unless you're from a Soviet background. You two just happening to have these interests in common is fucking wild. Sounds like love bombing. I'm also wondering if his friends suggested he engage in a little negging in order to take control of the relationship. Either way, I'd cut my losses now. This was something I was thinking of as well. Did he discuss his favorite tea/classic Russian literature/Soviet cinema and why, or does he just seem like a great listener that happens to agree with what was being said? I'd also like to note that he didn't change his behavior until after OP made a commitment to him. He may be the type whose behavior gets worse after a commitment is made, say physically assaulting the person. OP, you said words that hurt his feelings and he physically assaulted you in a manner worse than how he hurt himself. It doesn't matter if he seems nice at other times, he isn't good enough for you. The way she felt weird about the situation but couldn't quite understand why sounds like narcissism to me. Your body responds differently because you know deep down when something isn't right, but narcissists can make you to ignore your instincts. It's like they are saying they love you and care for you as they treat you like crap, or in this case they are literally pushing you to the ground while pretending it was an accident. Your subconscious picks up on the truth, but you can be so disoriented by the manipulation that you tell yourself it was just an accident and you believe their lies, which can make you feel insane over time, which unfortunately makes you more reliant on the narcissist, which is what they want. This is so true. That I'm sorry, didn't know you were so fragile apology could have came straight out of my narcissistic ex's mouth. In fact, one time we were goofing off and play wrestling, and he picks me up and throws me hard on the ground. It knocked the wind out of me and he knew I had back issues. Plus, we were going to do a Spartan race the next day. I was legitimately hurt. He didn't care. Didn't apologize. Other times if we were playing around he would just randomly hurt me really badly and say that's what you get for messing with me. Like a flip just switched. I'm getting really bad vibes from Ops guy. Sinister. Yeah, I was thinking about a book where a girl Anna hides inside a big copy machine and accidentally creates a copy of herself called Anna. That second version is more reckless and really bad at math. She is not throwing people on ground though, so I don't know. I would say this is not a viable theory. Story 2. Boyfriend proposed to me with an expensive engagement ring he bought to propose to his ex but didn't. Is it unreasonable to return it to him and insist that I don't want a ring intended for someone else? I knew about this $20,000 ring early on when we dated and how he's been trying to sell it away. I even tried to help sell, but it just remained unsold because you get maybe only a quarter of it back. Financially speaking, he's not tight. He has a lavish lifestyle, but he has also taken a pay cut for a new role and I am still in the beginnings of my business setup. So I get the pragmatic approach that he wanted to reuse it given the fact that he didn't get around to propose it. Especially if we want to plan for the future. When he pulled it out 2 days ago on our trip, I was surprised and upset, but then he managed to convince me that it matters who the ring ends up with. A little background about the trip. We split the trip. I did not expect to be proposed. And I know that when he planned to propose to his ex, he even booked a week-long 5-star resorts vacation at a tropical island. I knew this because early on in the relationship he invited me to go on the trip with him, but later on I found out that he had this ring. I put 2 and 2 together, which he confirmed the trip was supposed to be when he proposed to his ex. So adding to the recycled ring, I felt like he didn't put much effort to the proposal compared to when he planned to propose to his ex. Maybe financially he did better before the pay cut. But I just felt like some other chick before me enjoyed him in his best times and I'm getting the leftover scraps. The ring was not even the right size for me, loose on my finger. I'm thinking to talk to him about the ring and how it bothers me. I'm grateful he is thinking of me as someone who he wants to spend his life with and be even proposed with such an expensive ring. It's just that the fact that I have to wear it for a very long time until I die, but then it would be a reminder to me that there's another person from before that's supposed to be this ring's owner. And now it made me feel like I'd be comparing everything. But I have accepted the ring and the proposal and don't know if it is unreasonable of me to do that. What should I do to not feel this way? Comment. Why even marry someone you can't spend time with? Why rush it all within a year? How about instead of marrying him they try to actually meet and get to know each other? Possibly live together for some time. He literally proposed to her using his ex's proposals hand-me-downs in every way. This was not planned or on anyone's time. He used her to save himself some cash on crap he can't return. If it was just one thing then fine, but every single piece of this is shady down to not even resizing the ring. Anyone not running away from this situation is begging for trouble. I can guarantee anyone worth their salt would take a 1K ring and a proposal at a place that means something to them over this fake nonsense. I would feel oddly wearing a ring intended for his exes. I have no issue with used jewelry and buy and wear plenty from pawn shops, etc., but that wouldn't sit well with me. He likely won't spend the same amount on a new ring since his situation is different. Can you take the stone out and work with a new bend and setting? Maybe that is a solution. I think this describes at least 90% of marriages. Usually there was at least one other person first, but it doesn't work out and then they find someone it does work out with, whether it's better connection or more similarity in desires and expectations, etc. My wife came along after someone else I had hoped for a life with didn't work out. But my wife and I connected, got married, eventually had a child, and I can honestly say within no time I never even thought about the other girl afterwards. I never gave an engagement ring to the other girl, but I did give her a promise ring which she gave back. When I bought the engagement ring for my wife, which she picked out, my wife asked if he would give me credit towards the new ring if I sold him the other. He gave me $500 as credit, which I was happy with. It's about what I paid for that ring and knocked the price of the engagement ring down to about $4,000, over 20 years ago. Do you think she could be candid with him about this? Say something like, I understand you are probably still hurt and salty about her, but I am not her. I am not the one that hurt you. Let's wait a bit, use the stone, design a new setting, and try again. She deserves to have her energy and enthusiasm matched, and he really shouldn't be proposing until he can woo her properly. If he has residual grief, he needs to work through it so he can see OP clearly. I'm saying this as someone who doesn't wear a wedding ring. We just had other priorities and I know I would lose it. What a therapist you could become, with this inside info. If you were interested in that. Wow. I think this is spot on. The relationship started out with her settling for things meant for someone else, that required almost no effort on his part, and that won't improve after the honeymoon phase. The ring was not even resized for her. That's telling. You are good at this. I really hope OP reads this. May I ask, does escorting make you like men more or less? Are you more or less empathetic to them? Thank you so much for taking the time to provide such a generous answer. You are a very insightful person, and I admire your intelligence and strength, and I'm glad you find your work fulfilling, and that you have found love, too. It sounds like it takes a lot more than beauty to do this work safely at a high-end level. I am also glad to hear that you are safe most of the time and that you have got your strong boundaries in place,